All right, we are here at the Pineapple Perspective with Troy Hooper. This show's sponsored by Pepper Lunch Restaurants, not Craveworthy, surprisingly enough. Um,
Not
I've
yet.
got a great guest. I thought to myself when I started this show, I would have to wait a significant number of shows before I felt ready, but the stars aligned, the calendar forced it. So you're ready when you do it. It doesn't mean you have to wait because my guest today is not only a good friend, but an absolute industry icon and legend. Gregg Majewski, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Troy. Thanks for having me. And, it may be sponsored by Craveworthy by the time we're done.
Hey, one day. Got to keep the love for pepper lunch this time. We'll get into a little bit about who Gregg is, where he comes from, what he's up to today. But I think most listeners will have a sense of Gregg and an awareness of Gregg, and if not, you're in for a huge treat. This gentleman just really has his finger on the pulse of the industry at every given moment across so many types of brands and service models and systems. So he's built massive companies before, and he's building the biggest one yet in Craveworthy. So looking forward to talking about that. But Gregg, we start our show every time by getting to know you. As the thesis of this show, the pineapple perspective really surrounds around the idea of what is hospitality. And so I ask you, what does hospitality mean to you?
It truly means taking care of others. So I don't look at hospitality as in the restaurant space. I think about hospitality in my life, and it's all about taking care of others and giving back, and making someone else's day special, any which way you can.
So this follow-up question that is always what or where or how did that get formed in you? Where'd that come from? What were some experiences in your life or some lessons or things that sort of helped you get to that belief today?
So my dad, when I was growing up, had the worst temper. I mean, he would all of a sudden blow up, and then the next second, you were his best friend. He just got it out, moved on, and took care of people. And as I watched him, he always went above and beyond then to always take care of everybody that his employees, his family, and anything else, that he was always putting them first. And I'll never forget going to a guy's apartment that my dad was the landlord in, and guy couldn't afford rent and worked for him and everything else. And, my dad wanted his money like every landlord, and, but saw that he was on hard times and gave the guy a way to get out of it. And then donations that he would make or things that he would do for employees that were with him a long term. And, you know, just always doing the extra is what I saw as hospitality and sort of taking care of other people or the people that you work with. And he did it night and day. And he still does it today, where he does things in his company that I shake my head at. Oh, how would you do that? But that's just the way he is. And then my sister would look at me and go, "And you don't do this?" And, and I just sort of laugh, and I'm like, yeah, I guess I do. But I learned that and how to take care of others and make sure that they're the ones that matter. And that's how we then streamlined it into the restaurants, is that you walk into a place and you walk into an opportunity that you're going to get to serve this guest. To us and to me, it's we've got to make sure that opportunity is they know that they're important to us. So what else can we do during a normal visit? And people will laugh at me, well, what the hell can you do at Jimmy John's to make a visit special? There's not a lot, but we always used to laugh and tell people, but when they walk in, we wanted you to have this blow away greeting, and when we walked out, we wanted to slap you on the ass and make you feel really, really good, so you know how thankful we were that you walked through our doors. And in all my restaurants, we've continued that sort of, we're truly grateful that you picked us, as the opportunity to spend money or have a meal with your friends or family, that we should be above and beyond grateful for that. And hospitality is making sure that they have that one special moment every time they walk through your doors.
A lot there. I'm going to say the following. I would say, from my observations of you and your business over the last few years, that I cannot think of very many, especially contemporary companies like you and yours, that live what they say out loud. And I think you do it amplified times 1,000. There's a lot of value propositions on walls and a lot of mission statements on doors But I think a lot of folks talk about hospitality. I think a lot of folks talk about taking care of their employees, believing what you've just said, but it doesn't usually translate out loud. It doesn't always show up as overtly as it could or as consistently as it should. And I will say that just in watching what you do, not only do you preach it extraordinarily loudly, but you also do it. And I've seen the pictures, I've seen the videos, I've seen the posts of people behind you with your sleeves rolled up. I've heard the stories of your employees being cared for and felt cared and loved for. So I'm going to ask you a question, giving you those props. How does that translate to business results for you? How do you see it show up? Because I think a lot of people might hear this and think, oh, floofy, lovey dovey, my employees are first, blah, blah, blah. But they just go back to sort of business principles and P&L considerations and tactics and tips and tricks. But this takes a lot of work, what you're doing and the way you're doing it. But tell us what the results are.
So, I mean, and this is something I would have gotten from Jimmy. I mean, and he is one of the best at the motivational component of what he did. And he, at a young stage, and I was a perfect example, coming straight out of school, no real experience, and he took a gamble on me, is that if you believe in the people that you hire and you give them the opportunity to outshine what they ever thought they would do, and then support them through that process, you're going to build a culture and a team that's willing to do anything for you. And that's sort of the magic behind what I do in the way I've always done and built the team, is that I don't believe in a hierarchy. I don't believe in I'm the king of an organization and because I say it, we're going to do it. I believe in a very, very flat structure, and everyone that's on my team or in my inner circle has the opinion and the knowledge to shoot me down and go toe to toe with me. And having them be able to call you out and feel safe while they do it builds a different perspective. And then that's supposed to roll down to their orgs and that all that in the company. And that's what we do. By leading by example, then you do that. And my job is to be the biggest cheerleader of the company. And I tell people all the time that my only job is to dream big. And I got to dream dreams that we may never hit, but I have to sell those dreams to the people that work for me. And I do that by caring about them, by showing them the way that they can move forward, and by making it my culture that I want to create millionaires every day. And that the people I work with me, I want them to become millionaires. And I want them to have life changing moments because they decided to take a gamble and work for me. I don't need to do this for the money. That wasn't why I started this again. I started it because I had a chip on my shoulder that I wanted to prove to everybody that I could do something really, really special. But at the same time, I wanted to give back to everybody that was going to come onto my team. And so when we first formed Craveworthy, I created a company that nobody else, we shouldn't have at this stage, but I created a company so I could give away all my equity in it to the people that are joined me at the beginning and go on this ride with me. And, just in the short amount of time, there's several of them now that are worth nearly $1 million because of what we built in less than a year, 2 years, and that's just the way we've always been. And it's, if someone's in trouble, and can't afford a car payment, I personally write the car payment check. If rent's not due, I've written rents. I've bought downstrokes on homes. I bought cars. I paid for college education. I don't do any of that because to get a pat on my back. I do it because I want my team to know that I truly do care about them each and every day. If they're in trouble and can't perform at work because of outside stresses, they're not good to me. They're not going to put in their time. And I have the ability and the luck to be able to do some of those things. Now, most founders don't, and most people don't have the past to sort of do that when you're building your company. And most people just are worried about paying their own. I've I have all I ever need. I live very modest and I live very, you know, controlled, that now is just to give back and do other things. And that's to my nephews and my cousins and, all my family and then everybody else. And in the end of the day, I want to say that I created X number of millionaires. We did it at Jimmy John's, and I want to do it again.
How do you see, just results wise, how do you see that trickle down? So that's a lot, that's powerful. You live it, it's loud. You got your inner circle that, okay, let's say they take that in and they repeat that about 75% of the power. Then sort of the director, middle management level gets that down, and maybe they repeat that at 50% of the power. But when you think about your line level staff, because ultimately what's going to happen, if it hasn't already, is somebody's going to come into a restaurant of yours, mostly QSR, fast casual concepts, and they're going to be the most beginning level person. And in 10 years from now, maybe they're going to be a single unit or a multi-unit owner, or maybe they're going to be in the HQ inner circle. How do you know, and how do you see, and how do you ensure that what you're saying here today and that you live every day gets down to the minimum wage worker, first job teenager? That one day, if you look at Walmart today, that guy started minimum wage. The CEO of Walmart today started at minimum wage. I think it was like 18 years ago, 20 years ago, like a pretty short period of time in the world of becoming CEO of Walmart. He started as a line level worker. How do you know that that's going to happen for you, and that those folks can carry that torch in a way that it actually matters and trickles down?
Because to make culture go, you actually have to be present at all levels, and especially when you're in the building stage. So you joke about the pictures and stuff like that of me walking in a restaurant, or the pictures of me not when don't take pictures, thank God, but when I'm running the line in a restaurant for.
No, I have pictures of you running a line at Lollapalooza last year.
Yeah. And I mean, but I walk into a restaurant every day and I end up cooking. And if they see that, or they're with you and you ask those questions, it- stores talk and people talk. And when you're real and actually authentic to the staff, no matter who it is, it trickles across the board all the time. I've never in my life been worried about building or having it trickle down, because I know that if I'm my authentic self to my team, then they're going to be their authentic selves to them. And that we get a much higher return on, 75%. I mean, Kristen is my senior VP of ops, and she's 100% me. She has the heart, the soul, the connection, and everything else. And she's in that role because of that. And because of that, her team is connecting at 100%. And those that don't, they tend to leave, because they don't want to be in that type of organization. The only people that we have leave are usually the people we want to leave. We don't lose the ones that we want to keep. And we build that culture day in and day out. But it's being present, it's actually being there and listening to them. And when you go in, not just taking a photo out. There's so many CEOs that walk in their restaurant and take a damn photo op because they're in a store, and ooh, I'm in a store. Go screw yourself. Actually go in and be what they are and show them that you're not better than them. And that's how you build a culture. But too many of us don't do that. And I knock people all the time for it. It's not the first time I've said this.
Yeah.
There's so many phonies out there that in the C-suite that don't even know how to turn the grills on in their restaurants. That's pathetic. We're restaurant people. You have to be part of your community day in and day out.
Yeah, I resonate with that. I've always said, and this is true for my entire career, having come up through fine hotels, resorts, and fine dining before getting into fast casual, about 8 or so years ago. I always tell people I'm the best dressed busboy. So now I don't wear. Boy, I went from wearing suits and bussing tables to just jackets, and then I added jeans, and now because of you, partially, I'm wearing polo shirts. I need the quarter zips though. I got to get some logo quarter zips, but I always say that I'm the best dressed busboy. That's what I want to do. I want to go in. I want to bust the tables. I want to ask the guests if I can take their plates away and have that moment with them and check in with them in an authentic way. I want to sort of take a load off the team, right, and let them see that nobody's too good to wipe down a table. That's always been my way. Is not necessarily always look. If I get on the line into pepper lunch today, I'm screwing it up for sure. I'm in the way. It's a very specific process. Could I drop a basket of fries? Yeah, but long time operator, but it's been a long time since I've operated. So good
So,
stuff.
and I take
Um,
great pride that I can outcook 90% of the people that work
Yeah.
for me, you know,
I
and
believe that. I believe that. It's because you've done it from day one. You've invented some of these concepts, so you help theorize and bring them to life. But the ones even that you've purchased, I think you made sure you knew them really well before you got your hands on it. All right, we're 15 minutes into the conversation. I think we need to give the folks in the world who don't know who the heck you are, where the heck you came from, and who this guy is that espouses these really strong and very valuable opinions that have true merit in results. Who the heck is Gregg Majewski for a second? Give us the shortest bio of your life. How quick can you tell us how you ended up in the restaurant industry and what the heck it is you're building with Craveworthy?
so got in the industry by mistake. A guy by the name of Jimmy called me out of the blue. He told me he changed my life. He did. Went from an intern to CEO in a short amount of time. Built the company from 30 restaurants to 300, 700 sold before I went on to become the largest franchisee at the time. And then have consulted for everybody in the world since then. Built two other companies that we can't ever just say their names. And, sort of where we're at. Decided for whatever reason that I was bored and wanted to create Craveworthy, which is a incubator or a PE like restaurant platform company without the PE or being ran like PE because PE destroys restaurants and buys brands and has built our own brands, hopefully to scale all of them to thousands of units, but realistically knowing not every brand that we have is going to be a home run. But the goal is three or four of them will get to the stage of 1,000 units plus, and then we become hopefully long term the second largest restaurant company in America, which is behind Rourke.
It's just because Rourke keeps buying the big ones, right? Excellent, excellent background. Do you even know how many brands you have today? Because I stopped counting. I cannot, literally cannot. You created a hot dog brand in the last 5 days. You kind of been slow lately. You took the summer off, right? Because you were acquiring like 3 brands a week there for a little while.
So we have
How many brands do you have,
13
Greg?
brands today, and we have hopefully by the end of September we'll acquire another three.
Three at a time. Greg does everything's in threes. There must be some kind of universal rule or law in Greg's mind that he only buys things in three. Okay, that's a lot of brands. That's a lot of new brands. It's a lot of created from the ground up brands. And it's a lot of brands that existed that maybe needed some serious help. I mean, you're not out there buying the best of breed. You're out there getting things you think have a lot of upside opportunity. Tell us a little bit about your thesis on some of these. If you want to use a brand as an example or two, great. But what is your thesis about what you're getting your hands around and why you're acquiring these certain things? Whether it's the mix of the concepts, is that part of your measurement, or is it just really what's in front of you that makes sense at the time and you pull the trigger?
So we look for brands in all of our facilities and any of them, something that's not out there yet or something that has a room for somebody to come in and take second position. I always want to be number one in everything I do, but there's no way you catch the number one Wingstop, for example. Wingstop is so far down the line and everything else, but there's a perfect niche for somebody to come in and be the best of the best. It may not have the better locations or the most location, but sure as hell can have the better product, the better, culture and everything else and become a dominant number two. Those are the things that we look for when we take over any brand. Obviously, if we can find a brand that we can be number one in because there's no one else out there, terrific. And that's what Genghis was. There's no other Asian bowl concept out there. There's no make your customization like that out there. So we're like, man, this is white space. We can go ahead and just go, 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 go. That brand had a ton of baggage and bad management and overbuilt spaces. And at one time had 100 units. And when I got into it, had 44 or something like that, and big, big leases. And you had to do this big turnaround. We knew that it was going to take 5 years to get that brand to sort of get through the process. But again, if we could come out of it, we would have something so unique and special. There wasn't a competitor out there. And so that was a brand we're willing to take a gamble on. Wing It On had wings. Like we just said, Wingstop was the beast. Why would anyone want to go against them? Well, Wingstop's food sucks. So just like Subway's food, it was trash. And so we knew at Jimmy John's we could be the better product, but never catch them. But let's go ahead and dominate them. This is what Wing It On has. We're the only wing company in America that won Best Wing Sauce 2 years in a row. No other chain has ever done that. We've done it in Buffalo for the last 2 years, home of the wing. With that being said, our food is just so much better. We can build this cult following based on quality. And if my brands all have that quality component, consumers will find you long term for quality. They may not ever make you scorch the earth like Dave's Hot Chicken or Blaze did or some of those because you don't have all the cool marketing, but quality always ends up winning, especially in today's times where you're very, very selective on the money that you're spending. If you can provide a quality offering to your customers and not value, value is a whole different segment. They look at quality, then they look at the value they get for that quantity. If you can provide that, you'll end up being able to win and get to where you need to be. And that's sort of how we pick our brands. But I like kicking the crap out of other people. I like that little chip on my shoulder.
Yeah, I mean, you've proven you're not afraid to go into a super niche arena, and you're not afraid to go into a pretty crowded arena with, Bud Long and Hot Chicken Takeover going right up against, the Nashville hot chicken niche that is very crowded out there, and basically fried chicken in general, wings as well. I mean, you're competing across many brands in the wing category, so it's pretty interesting that you've got these ultra niche treat companies like Dirty Dough, but you go about them in a different way. And look, to your point about being second mover, nobody's complaining about being Apple to the Microsoft of the world. Nobody's complaining about being Google, which, my God, wasn't even second mover. There was a lot of search engines before Google. I think you're right. I think it's about finding the consumer fit and then resonating with that consumer and doing consistent quality that they can expect over time. And I love that you don't hold back when you talk about specific brands. I tend to not name brands myself personally, but I have very strong opinions as well. Buffalo Wild Wings, I think, is the worst food on the planet. So there, I did it, Greg. You made me say it out loud.
I didn't make you say anything.
I know.
But I'm gonna
you
cut
inspired
that.
me.
I'm gonna cut that piece and use it.
You're a bad influence, Gregg Majewski. Okay, let's talk a little bit about topical, CEO to CEO, brands to brands here. Let's talk about a little bit of contemporary topical things. I like to bring value, and as we talked before the show, it's really your focus too. So how do we bring value in a conversation like this to our contemporaries and folks coming up in the industry and emerging brands, people who are thinking about the future of their restaurant business? And we started to talk about the economy. And I've heard you mention this on your show, Room for Seconds, by the way. If you look up on all the platforms, please find Gregg Majewski because you can't spell his last name. Just look for Room for Seconds. Great conversations and snippets and detail. Talk to me about the economy. You've kind of started to talk about that out loud lately. You're feeling it. Would love to hear how it is you feel like you're feeling it, you're seeing it. What's the trend? I mean, where are we on the loop down to the bottom of this cycle, and how are you managing through it, and what are you doing to set yourself up to survive it on a brand by brand or a total company basis, and then what's the future? How do we climb up, and where do we get to get out of what you're seeing as a pretty painful slump right now?
So everyone needs to understand the economy is always what matters to the consumer. We have not seen this level of inflation in my life, and so in most people's lifetime. So if you look at the actual hard data, everyone's raving, oh, it only went up 2.3% this year or this last month or whatever. That's wonderful. We're back to normal inflation. In the course of 3 years, we've seen a 20% jump of inflation. And when you look at what wages have done during that same time, they did not go up 20%. So housing went up, gas went up, food went up, cost of going out went up. Everything else in America went up 20%. The consumer did not get a 20% pay increase. And so they were already not covering inflation and the increases. Now it's major. So about last September, our blue collar markets fell off a cliff. Now, in comparison, and when I say fell off a cliff, you just all of a sudden notice, boom, we are down. Now we've stayed that same level of down. We haven't dropped again, but it was instant. And it was instant because they couldn't afford groceries. They couldn't afford, and they had to make necessity changes. And I get the argument all the time. Well, the good restaurants, Chipotle is killing it. What people have to understand is that when you're the top tier and you're someone's absolute favorite place, they don't leave you during those times. They cut everything else out. So Chipotle has done a fabulous job of becoming people's go-to. They're diehard. I want that every week, no matter what. It's their Starbucks, and we have those fans of my brands that have to say, hold us. We're not cutting you out. We love our wings every week. We get our bowl every week. It's a great deal. But not everybody feels that way about every brand. So you're picking one to go to.
And it's usually only 20% of your customer base that
Correct.
makes up that audience.
And you are sitting now starting to see the other data. When McDonald's all of a sudden announced, the first time they did it in January, I believe, oh, transactions are down. The value menu started coming back up. Starbucks, for the first time ever, said transactions were down. When did people give up their Starbucks?
Yep.
It doesn't happen. So all this financial data that's coming out from the restaurants are showing that sales are down and transactions are down because people are trading out because they don't have the disposable income anymore. That is the fear of the economy. And that's the fear of your workers. I mean, ask your own staff if you're in your restaurants, hey, are you going out to eat and all that? And they're taking meals home now, my staff stopped eating my food because they ate it all the time. So they would get it once a week. They're now ordering every day because they can't afford to go and eat. And we're paying people more than what the industry pays. And it's still that way. I mean, it's the cost of living is through the roof and the financial data is not changing. It's not done yet. You're going to see the interest rates, I'm guessing, start to drop. That's going to help fix some things. That will also send housing up. Because there's all these people that have wanted to sell but haven't sold. You're going to see pricing go up of houses because all of a sudden, hey, people can afford it. I'm going to charge an extra $30,000 for this house. And then people are going to buy it because it's more affordable. But you're not going to see them coming back to normal until either prices drop or cause their wages match that 20% increase. Now imagine paying everyone in America 20% increase, to cover what that is. That's what has to happen to cover the cost of living increase from 2021 on, and maybe 2020 on, but whatever that number is, the cost of inflation from that point to that point is 20%. It's unbearable. You can't do it. And restaurants are what are going to be cut off. Look at fine dining, look at, full service. They have already felt it. Now it's affecting QSR and fast casual. And it's not going away. I wish it was, but it's not. So how do you combat it? What do restaurants have to do to sort of survive? That's going to be the big question that we all have to try to figure out.
So a couple of things I want to jump in with there. One is that there's always a significant lag in the news cycle. So news today is economy positive, going to be a positive. We're okay. Going to cut it. But there's a lagging effect. As a matter of fact, what we're seeing today is the actual symptomatic result of things that happened 5 months ago, right? When we were 3, 4, 5 months ago at peak inflation, 9+% a month after month, it takes time for the consumer to feel it, for that to accumulate in an effect in their wallet, right? The credit card balance hits a number that gets scary. The bank account balance hits a number that starts to get scary. And that's when they pull back. So there's always a lagging effect, positive or negative. So the news might be good today, but we're actually living with the circumstances of 3 to 5 months earlier. To your point on McDonald's, I was not ever freaking out until I saw the graph of the McDonald's same store sales and overall sales from their earnings report last week. Has McDonald's ever had something that looked like El Capitan? Like, it completely looks like the top of a mountain fell straight off the cliff. And now they're at negative growth. They're at negative 1% growth. I do think I have a thesis on this McDonald's thing, though. I think that because the McDonald's meals that people were ordering have gone up significantly over the last 3 years, that the delta between a $15 to $17 McDonald's meal, 18 famously now talking about a Big Mac meal at $18, the delta between that and, let's say, Cava, Chipotle, Sweet Green, true quality fast casual brand, the delta is shrunk. And so people are like, well, if I'm going to eat out less often, then and I'm already going to pay that, then I'm just going to ladder up to $22 or $23, and I'm just going to do it less often. I'm going to treat myself better, enjoy the meal. If I'm going to do it less often, I'm going to enjoy it more. To your point of the Chipotle customer, just because Chipotle is doing well doesn't mean it has more people. It just means more people are choosing Chipotle as the comfort because they are not coming to everybody else, right?
So,
Um, I
but
would love to see the data on the Starbucks thing. I would love to see grocery report and see how the uptick in coffee sales at grocery have gone up to compensate. People don't give up coffee; they just give up $7 coffee.
right, I'm,
So
but I would bet Dunkin's up. I wouldn't,
yeah,
because you trade
because it's
you're
cheaper.
down. You can get
Yeah,
a $2 cup of coffee. But McDonald's is the perfect example of what we all did because we thought we had no choice to pricing. We
yeah,
put ourselves in this situation because when the pricing got tough and we needed to make sure we were covering margins, we all sort of said, let's raise our pricing to offset it. And now we're all paying this price. Now we had to do so,
yeah,
had to. Pricing hasn't fallen back. So like and once a restaurant takes pricing, very rarely do you see it roll back. It doesn't happen. Now, we rolled pricing back last November, or the November that all this started. It will be a year, I believe, this year. And we didn't roll it back. We introduced cheaper options,
yeah.
and created new menus and, shrunk some pricing and stuff like that. We've done all that type of stuff to try to sort of get us to that point to showcase how cool it was, and drive new traffic. My sales are down more because of I dropped my ticket in Budlong, for example, from $16 to $17 to 12. I took it in the shorts, but we dropped our price from 17 to 12, but yet I'm now starting to see magically transactions.
Right.
We
Volume makes
price,
up. Yeah,
and it doesn't make up $5 a ticket, but I wasn't building for today. I was building for 3 years from now. And I knew that my existing restaurants were probably going to lose money for a little bit. But because of what I was building on a much bigger scale, I was able to do so. A mom and pop can't do that. A
yeah.
smaller chain can't do that. Somebody who's not trying to build for 5 or 6 years down can't do that. We did that. And we're going to be okay in new markets because we did so. As we open up these new restaurants, we'll succeed expectations. But the old stores, they may never get back to that volume we were doing, but we did it because if not, we knew where the floor was going to fall off.
Yeah, I think I want to amplify what you just said because I think what you did causes two things to happen. One, you likely saved a lot of your existing customers from finding alternatives because now they had a more affordable option to stay within the brand they love or the food they enjoy. So they can afford it. So they can keep coming. And you also very likely created a magnet to attract a new customer at that price point, and that eventually they will ladder up as their financial circumstances return or improve over time, as we hope the economy allows for everybody to do. You got them in at $12, and when they can afford 15, they'll ladder up within the menu, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's a two-sided positive coin that you created there. It's actually a lesson that I'm going to go back and ponder on is creating the item or items or sub menu within the brand that could save some folks as well as bring in some new folks. What we did was be very, very cautious when I got in far enough into the brand at Pepper Lunch to really take a look at menu and pricing and renegotiating and innovation in our menu. We were already too late to the table for us to play catch up in the price game would have destroyed us. The consumer would have been like, what, like to your point, we can't go up 10%, et cetera. So we took a little bit of price over the last 15 months. We've gone up just under 9% total, but we did it in 3% increments. We waited 3, 4, 5 months, ended up being 5 months each. So over 15 months, every 5 months we went up 3%. And we were just really thoughtful about how, where on the menu we did that. And we also worked on supply chain to help improve the back end of our costs. But I felt we were too late to try to play catch up and get to where the market is. And I'm really glad too. I never wanted to have to get to market, right? Where market, I guess on average, 15 to 20% price over the last 2 years. 3 years
Mm-hmm.
is 26%.
Yep.
I didn't want to ever get there. I didn't think that made sense. I thought because of our business model, we had some room there to allow us to not have to put it on the consumer solely. So pretty interesting. Closing thoughts, Greg? Anything we didn't talk about or wrap up summary on the things we did talk about for today?
I mean, the biggest thing is that with the economy, you got to always be inventing ways to drive new traffic. And you got to think in today's market, your four walls have to be treated not just as your four walls. You got to look at other revenue streams on a continual basis. Don't discount catering. Don't discount, third party delivery options. Don't discount virtual brands. I mean, we created a whole concept behind our virtual brands to increase revenue in our restaurants to make up some of the loss. And we've rolled out virtual brands in them where we hope to generate between 250 and $1 million per unit in these virtual brands per location. That makes all problems go away. You got to think outside of the box going forward. And that's going to be the restaurant space for the next 10 years. You can't just rest on what's coming in your door or what's calling your restaurant or a third party. You got to go build that catering menu. You got to go and build sales at a much higher clip than you have to because you got to continue to get new people in. And catering is coming back, which everyone has said, oh, the offices downtown and all that. You're right, they're not. But these offices are spending a fortune to give lunches away to get people in the door. There's business to be had.
Yeah, I agree. I'm seeing a big push on catering across a lot of brands and platforms, and a lot of folks talking about it in the ether, so to speak. Starting to see it on the programs at conferences and webinars and things like that. I agree with you. If it's an opportunity you haven't gone after, it's a significant lift, and there's some pretty easy and creative ways to find that. It's new for folks that have never done it, but there's a lot of information out there, I think, to figure that out. Gregg, where can people find you? Please point us to the Craveworthy brands so that folks that now have learned about you or want to know more about what you're building can follow you.
So definitely go to craveworthybrands.com. You can follow me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, unfortunately. And also to plug in and listen to Room for Seconds, new episode every week.
Awesome. Hey, Gregg, thanks for the time. I know you're a super busy guy with 270 brands in your head, with only about 15 so far activated. Glad to have you. Appreciate your contribution on this show, but more so to the greater industry. And look forward to seeing you out on the road soon.
All right. Thank you, Troy.
Thank you for listening to The Pineapple Perspective. If you loved today's episode, leave a review and a 5-star rating. I look forward to welcoming you back next time.